and I'll be talking to these 5 people. Ken Barlow, all the way from Coronation Street, Pat Hancock, resident of Brookside, Managing Director of the Crossroads Motel, Nicola Freeman, Sandy Merrick, on a visit to Late Night Lineup from Emmerdale Farm, and the matriarch of EastEnders, our own Lou Beale. Anna, if I could start with you, do people now think of you entirely as Lou Beale?
Yes, I think they do. Yes, they do.
Do you mind that?
Not at all. I'm delighted.
Gabrielle Drake, how do the public see you? I mean, do they always... I mean, has Gabrielle Drake disappeared from view?
I don't think so. I mean, I still get called Hello Gabrielle quite a lot, as well as Hello Nicola or There's Mrs. Freeman. I mean, I suppose I was quite lucky to have done quite a lot before actually playing Nicola Freeman. So
yes, exactly. So you don't really feel you're going to sink into Nicola Freeman?
No.
Jane Hutcheson, Emmerdale Farm with its smell of the countryside, does that actually have a universal appeal?
We seem to have quite a wide-ranging audience, yes. Certainly age-wise, and I mean, judging by the letters we get, they come from all over the globe.
All over the country, yes. And William Roache, I don't know how much you saw of that Vox Pop, but the people there were very astringent in their views, particularly the last chap.
Yeah, but the last chap, he's got it wrong. He got totally. This is what the press have done. They say we're all rivals, we're fighting each other. We're not. We're all actors playing a part. We love each other. No problem. In fact, we have a monumental indifference to what the EastEnders do, and our ratings have not slipped. Our ratings are the same as ever, and we have our own standards which we fight for, and we do our own thing. We're all different. We all have our different personalities, and we go for them. So the press build this thing up, and totally falsely. I mean, you only beat us because your omnibus editions are added on the Sunday. We all know that. But you know, there isn't rivalry. We love our own shows naturally. We're protective about them, but the press build up this great rivalry which doesn't exist.
David Easter, are you now really Pat Hancock to the public rather than David Easter?
Yeah, I am, because I haven't really done much TV. I've been an actor for like 8 years, but Brookside was like the first TV part. So, yeah, I'm called Pat. I mean, occasionally I get called David, and I feel quite chuffed about it, because they probably tried to catch the credits because they go so fast at the end.
But in general, you don't mind?
No, I don't think so. I think that's what you're known for as the character, and people just believe, you know, it's what the soap's about, really. I mean, they're into the characters a lot, so they're going to call you the name.
Sure. William, more generally, why do you think it is that soap operas are so very popular?
Well, you know, they're also very important. They have actually an effect on people, because in the old days you used to read books or whatever, but people who are trying to make their own standards of morality and behaviour, they look to the soaps and they judge them and how to behave and how people behave by them. And I think if you're on between 6:30 and 9, you have a responsibility that it's family viewing to be reasonably... I mean, we like to feel we show people are basically good. And I think this is important. So it can affect people's morality, or it's supposed to reflect it, but in a small way it can affect it, and there's a responsibility there.
Yeah, Gabrielle, I mean, do you really think that? I mean, do you really think people are influenced by it?
Well, it does seem to me that they are, yes. I think that for a lot of people, certainly nowadays, when, you know, there's so many more old people living on their own, the soaps, the characters in the soaps are their friends. And,
but they're just like family, don't they?
Yes, they are like family. And in fact, you know, they judge them like their own daughters or nephews or whatever. And I mean, I agree. I think one does. There is a certain responsibility when you're going after that time of night.
The difference with the soaps, though, I mean, we're all from a different soap opera here, and I think a lot of, especially sort of talking about Brookside, because knowing the people that are involved in it, that our audience is probably quite a young audience, being that we have quite a few young characters, and I feel that each, like Emmerdale Farm, I mean, I watch a lot of television anyway, but I think that each has their special people that watch, like Coronation Street.
Yes, they do.
When I Coronation Street is like my mum's favourite soap of all time.
But you know, you're quite right, people do have it, but also there are people who love them all. And if anybody starts knocking one, they're offending others, because I know my wife, Sarah, she watches all of them and enjoys them thoroughly. I do. I watch them.
But
are you
also,
influenced by them?
don't you... Sorry.
No, go on.
I was going to say, don't you find, though, that when your fan letters come from an enormous variety of people, from sort of young boys to old women to schoolgirls? I mean, it's really quite extraordinary. And there again, there's this thing that you say of setting standards, really, and people... tend to look up to the characters to some extent.
Yes, talk about letters and people looking up to you. You've become a kind of agony aunt, haven't you?
A little bit, yes. A kind of granny that the youngsters write to, especially if they want to leave home. Then I have to ring them up and say, I'm awful off, so please don't stay where you are, because
She's never written to
you
me.
don't know much about me.
Do they write to you as Lou or as Anna?
No, as Lou, saying, I wish you were my gran, and my gran's awful, and she won't let me do this, won't let me do that. And occasionally I do get them saying they're going to leave home and come over to me, you know. And then I get a lot from the elderly people who are lonely, and they tell me all their illnesses and the operations they've had and the losses they've suffered. You know, those are very moving letters and so.
I think, you know, things have changed. In the early
Yes.
days, people used to believe them far more. Now so much has been shown behind the scenes, and they do know we're
Yes.
actors, but they like to go along with it. It is a little alarming when we have a death and you get a very nice letter saying where should I send the wreath and that sort
Well, there
of
was the
thing.
time an early bishop died.
That's right.
Yes.
I mean, you get all
Yes.
that, and you just don't quite know how to answer
No,
whether
I
to keep
know.
with it. You don't want to shatter an illusion, but
Yeah.
it doesn't happen as much as it used to.
I got, when I was, well, this is when I was doing The Brothers and I was supposed to be pregnant, I got several offers from firms for maternity clothes.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's a straight commercial
Yes.
project there, isn't it? Trying to
Yes,
sell
yes,
their
and
goods.
people offering
So,
to
yeah.
knit things. and-
Jane, do you find it extraordinary that people, well, some people anyway, seem to believe in the characters, really believe they are there?
I often think it's extraordinary, but I think you've actually got to accept that soaps are presented as real life. And I don't know, maybe Bill will disagree with me, but I think that the way they are actually portrayed, they are not portrayed as drama. They are. It is now over to Coronation Street, over to Brookside. Let's go to Beckendale and see what the folks are doing down on the farm, etc., etc., etc. And that's the framework. So therefore, you are in their living rooms
Yes,
twice
we
a week.
endeavour
Yes.
to be as
And
near
that
to the
is the way
truth
it
as
is
possible,
presented.
but we are dramas, we're not social documentaries.
No.
As for the characters, I regard myself as Ken's caretaker, and I regard Ken as a nickname. And these are the ways to live with it outside. It is nice when people know your own name, call you William or Roache.
Well, you've had 26 years.
I've had 26 years, I know. I'm trying to get used to it, yeah.
So young.
I'm an old man, treat me gently, yeah.
I won't say that to you.
I'm staggered. I'm still, honestly, giving it a trial to see if it's going to work.
But you said talking about it as drama, the
Yes.
critics, generally speaking, are pretty sniffy about soap operas.
Yes, I think unnecessarily so.
So
I
do
don't
I.
think they
I
should.
mean,
I mean, the soaps
yes.
are very popular, and as I said, they have a responsibility and an effect. There's no right to be sniffy. Of course, we're not Ibsen or Shakespeare. Don't pretend to be.
But I think that the critics are sniffy very often about Ibsen and Shakespeare too. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think that one really needs to go an enormous amount by the critics. I
No,
mean,
oh, no.
those
It's
who
because-
can do it and those who can't criticise. That's
Yeah.
what I've always
The
felt.
one thing I think we'll all agree with that is difficult is the press.
Mm.
The press know that 20 million people watch us, and they know if they write about it, they're going to love it. And they're very naughty sometimes. They ring up for a story, you don't give it, so they'll make one up. And I had that happen last time. They've actually fabricated an article, and it was totally incorrect. And you've got no comeback unless it's libel or slander. That is one of the hardest things that all of us will have to,
Yes.
to live
Yes.
with.
I mean, do you find as a newcomer that that's a very difficult area?
It is because, you know, I'm willing to talk to anyone about anything, but on a face-to-face thing when they're there and I can see it, and a lot of the interviews are sort of like taken from other interviews you do,
Yeah.
and you know,
Yeah.
press
Yeah,
are
they
very
make them up
clever.
if you want.
You
Yeah.
stick little lines
They
here and
also
stick little
twist
lines
what
there.
you said. I mean, you
Oh,
could,
always.
you know, if you say, "Oh, you know, I've had such a hard day" or something, then they'll say you're fed up with the whole thing. Or, that's, I
Yes.
think what's happened to poor old Leslie.
Yes, he's had a very,
I think
very
there should be a
hard time.
body that if the press prints something that is incorrect, like the press council should make them put the right picture. All you've got is slander, which unless you put up about £20,000 to prove it, they don't listen to you. There should be some protection, I think, but we have none at all.
Just to talk about Crossroads for a moment. Crossroads had a facelift in recent years, a bigger budget, location filming, all the trimmings, and part of that facelift, of course, was bringing in Gabrielle Drake. Did you feel under pressure to deliver the goods, as it were?
Oh, yes, I think I did, very much so, yes. I must say I wasn't made to feel under pressure by the fellow members of my cast, who could not have been more charming and who accepted me and were delightful to me. But obviously, yes, I mean, there was quite some pressure there.
Yes.
And it was very worrying. Also, I mean, my producer had to take a lot of the pressure too. I mean, I was his responsibility, so I felt a duty to him.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I don't know how many of you here actually remember the old Crossroads. I mean, you know, it was almost a cult programme with boom mics in shot, doors that shook the scenery, people forgetting their lines and no retakes.
Before my time, sorry.
Does anybody feel any kind of sorrow for the passing of that kind of charm?
No, I
It's
don't
not
think so.
funny.
I don't think it's a charm.
a bit
But
too
why
serious.
Crossroads used to get stick was it was on 5 times a week.
Yes.
And if
Yeah,
you're doing a
yes,
show
right.
5 times a week, of course you can't
Oh.
neaten it up. And I'm amazed and I'm very impressed with the way they did it.
Of
So I
course,
think they used to get the stick, but it wasn't fun.
Yeah, also, may I just say, that the people that I've been working with, I mean, they're extremely professional actors, all of them, and work very hard.
Oh,
And-
yes, no, don't misunderstand me. I'm talking about...
No, I know, but I have a feeling, too, that one was judging it by other standards. I mean, television has made enormous technical leaps, and sometimes I think with the older soaps it took them longer to catch up with those technical leaps, and they went on in an older fashioned way of making programmes, and you could see the difference in the technical standards perhaps between them and something on which an enormous budget was spent. I mean, you know, the big classy Brideshead Revisited or whatever has a budget which is I don't know how much more than the soaps get.
Yes, I
And
mean, you
so,
can't call it charm when it was really technical inefficiency and groping with words. I mean, we were live when it started, and some terrible things went out.
Oh, and Coronation
I wouldn't be here now if we carried on being live. We'd all have had a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
But they have, as Gab was saying, they've all become more efficient. There's more of us now. I'll tell you something I'm quite amazed about. The BBC, which is the biggest television company in the world, I gather, has only recently produced a so-called soap. And yet all the ITV companies put together aren't as big as the BBC, and we have 4 or 5 of them. I don't know why the BBC have taken so long to come round to it and haven't got more, quite honestly.
Perhaps they had to wait till they found the
And
right one.
as I understand it too, in comparison with the American soaps, I mean, there is no comparison, as I understand it. Americans, when they come over here and see our soaps,
Yes, our
this
general
is
standard is
infinitely
Yeah.
above the standard that it is in America.
Yeah.
We don't like to call it. We call ourselves a folk opera. I mean, we work jolly hard at being sincere and true. And I mean, soaps were things employed by soap powder manufacturers just to
Yes.
shove something out, and we're not. We're actors doing
Very
weekly
good job.
dramas. Yes, yes,
Can
we
I
are.
bring you to another area, and that is fame?
Yeah.
Anna,
Yes.
characters in soaps are household names, and some are very experienced stage actors with great experience to draw on, like
Yes.
yourself. But young actors who've only just started in the profession,
Yes.
very often it's their first taste, and it
Yes.
happens very, very quickly.
Yes.
Do they find it difficult to handle that kind of stardom?
Well, I think our chaps handle it extremely well. I think they are possibly at risk, but they seem to handle it very well in our company. And I think the company itself is not allowed to get out of hand because we have a very strict producer.
It's a character test. quite
Yes,
honestly.
I think
some
it's,
take it well, some don't. There's a great danger to go ego tripping about and thinking you're wonderful and important when
I
we're
don't
not.
think
we're
any
just,
of our
we're just
people
actors,
do
but
that,
we are
really.
celebrities and known.
How did
Yes.
you cope with it, David?
Well, I suppose it's a lot different compared to, I mean, again, Brookside is really, you're talking about the ratings between Crossroads, Emmerdale Farm, a lot more. I mean, we're still a very minority channel and got a good following, but not as big as everyone else, and everyone knows that. So it's a lot different for us, but it is, you know, pretty difficult. But you know, like I said, we have got a lot of young characters, and I think they will cope with it very well. I mean, I enjoy it. I think we all do to a certain extent.
Yes, there's more
But you just got to
advantages,
sort of like, you know, it's like I said, it's not soap. I mean, I can get on a train and not get too much hassle, and you know, I like it. That's part of what we do, I'm afraid, and you have to put up with it. I mean, if it didn't happen, you think, well, I must be doing something wrong here, or maybe, you know.
Yeah, what about you, Jane?
Perhaps things have been relatively different for me because when I first started playing this character, I was actually playing down some 9 or 10 years and playing quite a young sort of teenage schoolgirl. So I wasn't instantly recognisable. And that probably makes a great deal of difference. Now it is very different because obviously the character's grown up, you know.
People
but
cash your checks,
you just
don't
have
they?
to
That's the main thing.
learn to get used to it.
Go into restaurants. and things.
Bring you to a final area, what I would call escape from a soap. Some actors have managed it. I mean, Arthur Lowe, for
Yes.
example, went from
Yes.
strength to
He
strength.
did very
but
well.
quite a few actors in soaps just disappeared.
In fact, in our experience over the 26 years, the only one who has left and gone upwards was Arthur Lowe. You see, even poor old Pat, she struggled away doing all sorts of things. And it's awfully difficult when you've had that continual exposure to find something that gives you the similar stimulus.
But I do think that we're very, very lucky in this country because we are able, unlike in most countries, to mix theatre and television and films. And I think that you find, it seems to me, and it's certainly in my experience, that you can actually, I mean, if you're a star in television, you can go into the theatre where you're welcomed because you bring in the audiences, and that's very necessary. And now we get the chance to mix the two a lot more.
Yes.
Well, finally, Coronation Street has been with us for 26 years.
Yes.
Right? Anna, do you think that EastEnders will still be here 25 years from now?
It might well. It might well. Yes, it might well be.
And would you, David, like to
be in it in 25 years. The difference about the Brookside, I think, is that the characters go pretty quickly. I mean, maybe 3 years. I'm coming up for my 3rd year, Tony. So maybe I think that might be my time. That the producer says, "Well, thank you very much." Which is fair enough.
20 odd years.
I wouldn't want to be in something for that long.
Well, I said the same. I mean, I'm staggered. I've been in it. No, really. It's a year at a time. You take it, and I'm
a big
absolutely
fan of
staggered.
yours.
I know.
I watched you when I was 10.
Well, thank you all very much. Jane Hutcheson,
born,
Anna Wing, William Roache, David Easton.
Thank you.
Joan.